I want to discuss the importance of history. Um, history, history obviously is important, but to me, I think it's important in a way that differs from most other people. Um, I'm not a person who's really interested in the stories of history, like in the event to event happenings. Like, for example, this general amassed 500 people and then they trekked along the snow for 50 days before they arrived there, and there was no food, and those kinds of things. That's I mean, it's a great movie. I mean, it's not like I don't like stories, but when we're talking about history, I don't want, I'm not interested in that. All right, so what am I interested in? I'm interested in the lessons of history, right? And therefore, before I continue, it means that what I'm not interested in still has value for other people that may like that. Okay, but for me, no. So what am I interested? I'm more interested in this in an analysis of history, right? When you analyze the various factors that were involved uh, within an event, right? Like World War One. If you were to say, okay, I want to tell you about World War One, I'm more interested in the ideologies at play, why this ideology had arisen, and what was it trying to achieve, and what was its opposing ideology in the same, what about these ideologies and these mentalities and the ways of seeing the world, how did these interact, and what led to them interacting that way, right? So I'm not really interested in the minutia of the details. You have two opposing ideologies, right, that come from two different belief systems. Already understanding these ideologies tells you that there's a certain each of them has certain strengths and weaknesses as it comes to a way of assessing reality, right, and how a person should see reality. And then the way they interact and the consequences or the results of that interaction has lessons in terms of how do you as an individual with your own way of seeing the world need to deal with another person who has an opposing or a different view of the world, to avoid or to encourage certain outcomes. All right. So that's what is interesting to me about history. Just, these other stories, I think they're great as movies and novels, and but not biography. I've never really liked biographies for some reason. Um, well, let me not digress. But yeah, so yeah, so in practical terms, I don't really, I don't really care that white people were racist. I care that we had racism, or we have racism. Because at the end of the day, even if you think about it carefully, does it really matter who hates you? No. What matters is that they hate you, right? And therefore you have to sort of engage with that problem, right? So even if, I mean, if you look at history and you replace white people with any other type of people except for blacks, you still have a similar story, if not the same, right? So those kinds of details, my point is those kinds of details are less important to me. I think a better way, my way of looking at history in terms of the lessons, because I mean, you don't really need to know the names of the people of the past to sort of to implement the lessons of history. You just have to understand the because remember, there's this belief that material events come from spiritual ideas, or spirituality drives materiality, right? The spiritual world um, governs or determines the material world, right? So the material world is a reflection of what happens in spirit. So if you understand the sort of the concepts, ideas, these sort of metaphysical uh, forces that are driving people's actions, then you can glean lessons from them and implement them for a better future. Now, with that said, and I've stated this before in some of my older videos, that if you as an individual were the black race as a whole, okay, and in our current history, you're dealing with a white person as the white race as a whole, right? Um, then history matters because you're two people as communities, right? And your interaction has is as it has been, as history has stated. So therefore, then your lessons from that is okay. I've had an interaction with this individual. They don't like me, and I don't like them, whatever, due to what has happened. And these are the lessons that I've learned in terms of dealing with this person. And I'm going to now sort of set up structures, mental, cultural structures to mitigate, those kinds of effects from this person. Um, and then those structures now set up are going to apply to, are going to sort of be up for anybody else, right? Not that I'm going to apply them automatically, but I'm going to be ready. They're going to be available for me to apply them should I see the same kind of behavior from any other community or any other person. Okay. Um, yeah, I think that's a better use of history than simply learning history to know the names of of people in the past. You know. Yeah. So yeah. That is a bit of a contradiction that I said there, but I think it rings true still. Black people as a community, as a whole, should be cognizant of white people as a whole, right? But not as individuals, as a whole. So what you do is you say, okay, fine, white people as a whole, we sort of understand where they stand when it comes to their perception of black people, okay, and we're going to act accordingly. All right. But if you, as an individual, meet a white person, you still got that in your mind, but you don't, it's not the forethought. It's not, I mean, it's not the most prominent thought in your mind. You still sort of should give the white person the benefit of a doubt, is what I'm saying. And in that way, then the minutia of the history in terms of it was white people who did this becomes less significant, although it will always be significant, it will always be a factor to consider. You meet another white person, you are aware of our history, you sort of keep that in your mind, at the back of your mind, but treat the person like a person unless they show you that behavior that you've already got safeguards as part of your culture set up. Okay. And then you can sort of say, okay, look, I'm not going to engage with you, support you, buy from you, sell to you. When I'm not going to engage you in any way, I'll move on to the next white person. And then the next white person shows the same thing, and this actually equips you to better deal with the sort of the hurt, the impact of that hate, right? Because you sort of like you're cognizant of it. It won't surprise you if it comes up. But if it doesn't come up, all the better for it.